Now, the reason that I say it's a good business is because, so you're pretty much going to be hands off as long as there's nothing like structurally wrong with the house. Some of these small type businesses that we look at, we sometimes think that there's no profit in it. I wouldn't suggest you do that unless you're going to be on the ground here. Your business, your daily bread, okay? You hire slowly, you fire quickly. That's the motto when it comes to things like that. Some of the stuff you can do from the West, some of the stuff you can do in Ghana, right? But especially Ghana, I would say, is how it's marketed. I'm going to say this, and it's probably going to offend a lot of people, but I'm just going to say it's probably better to get... Hey guys, welcome back. Okay, today's video, I want to discuss 5 businesses that potentially are going to be easier to do if you live abroad in the West somewhere and you want to start some type of business in Ghana, okay? Now, I've done previously a video explaining 5 businesses that you shouldn't do if you're in the West. So this time we're doing it the other way around and we're talking about 5 businesses that potentially could work if you are still living in the West, okay? Now, to start with, so my issue with doing business in Ghana is that you have to be very, very hands-on, okay? It's very difficult to set up any type of business situation here and not be here. So even as I go through this list of businesses that potentially can do, I'm saying potentially could do because you're still going to need some kind of involvement, right? You're going to still need to have your hand in it somehow. But perhaps these businesses you may not need to be in so much. It may not be as intense. You may not have to do as much micromanaging. Okay, so the first business I'm going to start with, I've spoken about it before and I speak about it many times, is some type of property rental, right? We're talking about Airbnbs, some type of long stay, short stay place for people, some type of accommodation space, okay? Those businesses are really, really great because they can be pretty much hands off. All you really need is a property manager for something like that. And you still need a good property manager because you need someone who's going to be able to take care of the place. And especially if it's like an Airbnb type setup that you have, you need someone who's going to be able to communicate with the person who's gone into the apartment to make sure that everything is good and that their needs are being met. And so sometimes, you know, there may be aspects of critical thinking involved. You know, if certain things aren't up to speed, you need someone who's going to be able to take care of those things if you're not going to be on the ground yet. Now, the reason that I say it's a good business is because, first of all, if you get someone in there, once they settle, they're kind of like settled. You don't really need to do too much. They're kind of figuring out how they're going to live, especially if it's a longer stay place, right? If someone comes and rents it for like 6 months, hey, that's 6 months of rent. They have to do their own setup. That's not even an Airbnb type situation. They have to come along and do their own thing. Sometimes, you know, some of these apartments in Ghana, they even have to furnish it themselves. So you're pretty much going to be hands off as long as there's nothing like structurally wrong with the house, okay? So things like that are going to be very, very good. The problem that you can sometimes run into when it comes to accommodation is that you may not have a full year of bookings, right? So there may be periods where there is no one in the property and therefore it's empty. So you may want to consider overheads and things like that, okay? So if there's no one in the property, how does that affect you financially? That's something that you will definitely have to look at, okay? But apart from that, that's a great business. Airbnb is also great, but Airbnb, you're going to have to be a bit more hands-on over, you know, a longer term rental. Even if someone's renting for a month, you're going to have to be a little bit more hands-on because you're going to have to do bed sheet changing. You know, if they run out of cooking gas, you're going to have to make sure that the gas is replaced, make sure they have internet, you know, all those little things, okay? So Airbnb is still good, but you're going to have to be a little bit more hands-on. So you're going to have reliance on someone else more so than if it was just a property that you have here that you're renting out for 6 months, a year, 2 years or whatever. Okay, so that's the first business. Now, the second business that I would say is actually a good one is going to be water bottling. So, you know, like when you see the bottles of water or the sachet waters, though, that is also a very good business to get into. Now, the people that I've spoken to in the past say that it's actually very, very lucrative. You know, one thing about Ghana is that some of these small type businesses that we look at, we sometimes think that there's no profit in it, there's not enough money in it. But actually something like that can kind of keep you going, it can keep you having steady income. And so they're actually worth going into things like that. Okay, now the reason that I say a water bottling business is because once you have your machinery, right, and once you manage to get a good member of staff or some type of manager or whatever, there's not that much that there has to be done on a daily basis, right? There's there's not as many things that you need to do compared to, I always say, a restaurant business, because that is just so intensive, compared to something like that, right? You can be a little bit more hands-offy, and you can also monitor from where you are in the West, okay? You can monitor things like how many bags were done, how many were sent out, and now you're not dealing necessarily with individual customers, you're dealing with, bigger buyers, so you're dealing with other businesses, you're dealing with, smaller vendors, and so you don't have to do as much work. It's not going to be as intensive. You're not going to have to do as much micromanaging, right? So if someone wants 100 boxes of bottled water, you know that 100 boxes has gone out, right? So you can kind of calculate for where that money is, and the money can be sent directly to you rather than it being held by the shop and then you don't know what's going to happen. The money can be sent directly to you, and therefore that deals with the money issue side of things, because that's where you're going to get a lot of problems when it comes to financially holding on to the money that the business receives. So water distribution is amazing. I personally wouldn't suggest doing, how they have it in Ghana where they bag the water and they put it on the back of one of those bicycle things and they deliver house to house and all that. I wouldn't suggest you do that unless you're going to be on the ground here and you want to expand the business, then perhaps you can do that. But if you're not on the ground, I would say stick to distribution of the water going to other businesses. It's going to be much easier, much cleaner. Just make sure you have a good, solid person that's going to look after that business for you. Okay, so you're going to need someone that you can trust. Still, make sure you put a contract in place and all that good stuff, but it's going to be much more hands-off than a lot of the other businesses that you could perhaps think of. The third business that was going to be a good one is some type of professional service, okay? Professional service, I'm talking about like social media management, video editing, things like that. You can oversee from abroad. That can literally be your business, your daily bread, okay? There is such a huge need for video editing services in Ghana. I kid you not, even social media management, because honestly, in Ghana, we don't have that down on lock right now. We really do not have it down on lock. And so if you can provide good service at an affordable price, then you'll be good to go. All you need is a really good team. Now, you may have to do some work at the beginning, I won't lie to you, right? In putting together this team and letting them know how you want the work to be and the quality that you want them to be able to produce once they get a video. Now, you won't necessarily be able to, well, you may not be able to go out and shoot content, because something like that may require your physical presence. But if someone has shot content and they just want you to be editing, they just want you to be churning out videos for them, right? So that the videos look high quality, whatever. That is definitely something you can go into. Again, social media management. That is something where you can have the conversations with clients over Zoom or however you're going to do it. And you can keep an eye on that and run that from the West very, very easily. The only thing you have to make sure that you do is make sure that your team are always going to be in the know of how you want things done, and make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And something like that, if you get a really good team, because one thing about Ghana is people don't necessarily just do one thing, okay? So they will do your job, but they'll be doing other things. Now, you want to be able to make sure that they're still doing your job. So you probably have to set some incentives around, the work that they do, they complete on time. And it will still allow them to be able to go and do other jobs, because they're going to do it whether they have your permission or not. That's what they're going to do. So if you can incentivize your team to make sure that, hey, look, this is the work, you do the work in this way, you get this bonus or that bonus or whatever it is, but make sure it's done to this standard, right? You hire slowly, you fire quickly. That's the motto when it comes to things like that, right? To make sure that your business can keep running, because it only takes one or two people to kind of spoil a business or give you a really bad name. So you want to keep your team really tight-knit, and you want to make sure that they're going to be dedicated to what it is that you're doing. But that is absolutely something that you can run, especially if you are taking on the bigger projects yourself, right? Especially if you have know-how of video editing, you have know-how of social media management, right? A lot of the work you can run yourself from where you are, and you have a team to fill in all the other little bits for you. So there's not a heavy reliance on someone else. Any business where you don't need a heavy reliance on a lot of other people is going to be good for you. So I feel like social media management would be a great one. As I said, I've not really come into a lot of companies that can do that. And even the ones I do know of can be quite pricey. So if you can find a way to be in the market and be affordable, right, especially as you're not going to be so hands-off. So it's going to be kind of like one of those businesses where almost like a Fiverr type thing, right? Where people come to you and like, okay, can you just edit this video for me? And so you're editing at an affordable place, oh my gosh, I can't talk. You're editing at an affordable price, but you're getting volume because of the price that you're offering your services at, okay? So something like that would be very, very good. So that's a great business to go into. Right, the fourth business, which I think would be pretty good, is something to do with e-commerce, right? So selling certain products that you can do from the West, okay? So we're talking about maybe like hair products, beauty products, that kind of thing. You need an online store. Some of the stuff you can do from the West, some of the stuff you can do in Ghana, right? You can have a team in Ghana. Especially, there's some of these industries that you go into, say like, cocoa butter, production of cocoa butter and things like that, right? You can pretty much run that. If you have a stable setup, again, you're going to need to do some upfront work. If you have a stable setup here and a team that that can produce for you here, right? All you need to do is make sure that you are able to get the products packaged for you and then have it marketed or wherever, and you run it online, okay? Something like that. You can monitor the sales, the money comes directly to you. Not too much hand-to-hand business has to be done, okay? So that would be a really good business. Now, there are so many other things. I mentioned hair products and I mentioned beauty products. There are so many different things you can get into. Now, I did this video before and I said I didn't think clothes would be a good one. That's kind of iffy. In fact, I would still say that clothes would be a difficult one to do. But there are other things that you can do. I'm not going to sit here and lay it out all for you. If you want to know, you can set up a one-to-one meeting with me and we can talk about some of those other businesses options, right? But there are some businesses that you can definitely do through e-commerce and do it that way, because you have a control of the quantity that you have, the quantity that's going out, the funds that are coming into the business, the funds that are going out, the overheads. You can kind of keep an eye on all of that stuff, right? So it's easier for you. But I would still say a business like that, you would still have to be coming in every now just to check that the quality is not going down and that what people are expecting is going to happen. Some of this stuff you can have boxed here, shipped to wherever you are so that you're handling distribution if that makes it easier. So any way that you can find to make sure that you don't have to rely on anybody too much is going to be a good way to handle things. So e-commerce is going to be a very, very good business. We've seen people do it. We've seen people sell things like even headscarves, right? Head wraps, and make a business out of it. It's how you market it again. A lot of businesses that you set up in Ghana really is about how it's marketed, as anywhere in the world, but especially Ghana, I would say, is how it's marketed. Because you can have two people that sell exactly the same thing. One does very well, one doesn't do very well, and all it is, the difference is how it's marketed, how it's advertised, and all that good stuff. So if you can find a way to advertise in the right way, you can do very, very, very well. Now, the fifth business that I would say is going to be pretty good for you to do is to go into some type of agriculture business, right? Not necessarily farming so much, okay? Now, again, on the previous video when I talked about businesses, businesses that you perhaps shouldn't do, I did mention farming, okay? But I did say in there are some businesses that when it comes to not having to do too much, they're gonna be very good for you, okay? In terms of harvest is only however long, and you don't have to be there on the ground continuously to make sure that the crop is growing in the right way, okay? If you're dealing with crops is going to be a little bit more difficult. But if you're dealing with things like turning cassava into gari, right? Then you're talking a different type of business, okay? So you're not talking about having to deal with farming and somebody looking after the actual raw material itself and in terms of harvest and things like that, right? You're literally setting up a production line. So you're making sure that you get the cassava, you have all the machinery, you have a factory or whatever, and it's being run in that way. You need, again, something like that, you need a great manager that's going to be able to do it. But the reason that I like that type of business is because once you've set up, if you can get someone who's going to look after the business, and I'm going to say this, and it's probably going to offend a lot of people, but I'm just going to say it's probably better to get someone from the diaspora that understands what it is that you want and pay them a very good salary, right? A comfortable salary so that they can manage that business for you, because even if you pay them a comfortable salary, right, you are still going to profit from that business. The problem that people have when it comes to some of these things is they don't want to hire the right type of manager to look after it. So they hire someone who they think that they can pay cheaply to run this whole thing for them, and they're taking away huge profits and not focusing on where they need to focus on. Now, your focus needs to be on the project manager who's going to handle all that potential day-to-day overseeing stuff for you, right? So you need to make sure that person is looked after as much as possible, because they're the person that's going to make sure that your business is able to run, especially if you're not able to be on the ground as much as you would like, okay? So invest where you need to invest. In the same way you're going to invest into good equipment in order to run the business, is the same way you need to invest into a good project manager who's going to have your best interest at heart and is going to understand the needs and the wants of the business, and is going to be able to come to you with problems and solutions, okay? Not just problems, but problems and solutions. So someone like that, you're going to have to pay the right way to make sure you get the quality for what you want so that you can run your business well. Otherwise, all you're going to find is that you buy these great materials, you're going to have a terrible manager, your machines are going to get damaged, you're going to have to do a lot of back and forth, the quality of your stuff is not going to be great, you're going to have a lot more headaches. So in order to alleviate that, hire someone that you know is going to do a good job, okay? So that's probably going to be someone from the diaspora. If you want, they could train up someone who's local to be second in command to stuff like that, but you know, some type of overseeing is going to have to happen there. But there are definitely businesses that you can run that way when it comes to agriculture. There are so many other things. I've mentioned cassava into Gary, you know, packaging and all that good stuff. There are things that people do that don't have to be so hands-on, but those are some of the initial ideas, business ideas that I have. I'd love to hear what you think about what I've said. Have you tried any of those? Would you agree with me? Do you disagree? Do you have any more that you think that I should add to the list? Personally, I would say the best one has to be number one, and that has to be accommodation. For me, that's as hands-off as you're going to get it if you can do a long-term rental. That's my personal preference, but let me know what you think. Okay, if you would like to do a one-to-one consultation with me, you can send me an email to dela@moretodela.com, and we can definitely book something in from there. And I think that's about it. I'm going to leave the video right there. Okay, so if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Don't forget to also like, comment, and share this video. Until next time, I am out. Nutifafa.
Me wind and